Hi everyone, welcome to Hitwise's digital marketing webinar series. For today's session, we'll be uncovering the power of deeper URLs. So how to extract powerful insights from everything that comes after the .com/ or the .co.uk/. And what does this mean for digital marketing teams? So before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules. The presentation portion of this webinar will be around about 20 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. So during the presentation, please feel free to send through any questions that you have via the chat box. We'll try to answer them during the webinar. And if we're unable to do so, your account manager will try and get back to you shortly after the presentation too. So firstly, about Hitwise, if you don't know us already, we're a specialist in online consumer measurement and competitive intelligence. Our data is derived from one of the largest consumer panels in the UK of over 3 million people, which is then aggregated and anonymized to represent the online population. So due to our data depth and reporting frequency, we're able to provide our clients with insights about their market, about their competitors and their customers at speed and an accuracy. My name's Lisa Liu. I'm the head of insights at Hitwise. I've been with the business for almost 2 years now. And essentially today, I'll be answering what is deeper URLs and how digital marketing teams can utilize this type of information. But before we get into that, just quickly a summary of the key trends that we're seeing online to firstly set the scene. So it goes without saying, our lives are increasingly on our mobiles, on our tablets and desktop devices, and for a variety of reasons and purposes. When it comes to retail, we're shopping more and more online. So over the first 9 months of the year, in the UK, we've clocked over 32 billion visits to retail sites, which was up 6% compared to that same period last year. We're also spending more time within each visit, reaching over 6 minutes on average per visit, which was up 5% year on year. Additionally, we're consuming more content and more news online, reaching over 28 billion visits over the first 9 months of the year. And although this is fairly similar when we compare that same period last year, we're again spending more time on news sites, increasing by 2% year on year. As well, when it comes to our finances and when it comes to travel, both verticals have also grown about 4% when it comes to online visits. We're spending more time on financial sites and also travel sites researching and booking our trips, rising by 9% and 8% when it comes to time per visit. More of that time is dedicated to middlemen as well, as we're researching for the best deals and prices, and we've noticed this trend particularly in travel and finance verticals. So just to name a few players, travel meta search sites like Kayak, TripAdvisor and iSlolly have all increased in visit share year on year when we look at the month of September. For financial aggregator sites, particularly Compare the Market and Money Saving Expert, these two players have seen an impressive 20% plus growth looking at September compared to this time last year. And thirdly, another key trend that we've seen is our search patterns are also shifting, particularly in the retail vertical, with the rise of native search or on-site searches on retailer sites. So let's look at the figures. Google still rules with almost 2 billion search sessions in the month of September. But this has declined by 20% year on year, a trend that we've seen mostly throughout 2018. Instead, consumers are shifting towards retailers to start their search journeys. And although at a much smaller scale, at 367 million search sessions, Amazon has grown by 29% year on year. And on a smaller scale, other multi-category retailers like John Lewis and Debenhams have also seen smaller rises in on-site searches at 3% and 6% year on year. So overall, we're spending more of our lives online. We're utilizing more price comparison and aggregator sites, and we're changing how we research and find products. So as businesses, we're faced with a different set of challenges and opportunities. So what are these challenges? When it comes to the customer or the consumer, we'd want to know how consumers are searching for products and services now that native search is on the rise. As well, how as a business can I keep on top of these trends and interests and make sure that my products and services are continuously relevant and targeted to them? And on the flip side, when it comes to my competition, with the rise of aggregators and third-party sites, how am I as a business performing versus my competition on these sites? And are there any partners or affiliates that I'm missing out on? And also more generally, how are my competitors performing overall online? And more importantly, what is driving their growth or their decline? So these are just some questions that our clients are faced with when it comes to the online landscape that they come to Hitwise to ask. So put simply, how can our clients or how can businesses better target to their customers, work with the right partners, and also outperform their competition? So for us, it really comes down to getting more meaning and insight from web analytics, as a lot of these questions can be answered if we unpack and uncover the full URL string. So let's look at a simple example of what that actually means. I actually did this search quite recently. I got off a pretty horrendous overnight flight from the States. My skin was a mess and I was in much need of a facial cleanser and needed it fast. So I performed a pretty generic product search on Amazon and clicked on the first recommended item, the Garnier Pure Active Deep Pore Wash. So as a consumer, I know that was my journey to finding Garnier's product. But if I was Garnier or a competitor brand of Garnier, how would I know that? I have a number of questions. How many of my customers are following that same search path on Amazon? How are they searching for my products? And how effective is my sponsored ad activity? So essentially, I would know by unpacking the full URL string. So at Hitwise, we look beyond the amazon.co.uk and extract relevant insight from the key parts that come after that /. So some of these features include identifying the product name, as well as the unique ASIN code to see what products are being viewed and purchased on third-party sites, on retail sites. We can then also aggregate that data onto a brand level and onto a category level as well. Additionally, within the URL string, there's a number of different search insights that we can also extract from the full URL string. For instance, I could identify the specific search term that our consumers are looking for, as well as identify whether that search term is a sponsored ad and how my products are ranking within that search query. So some of these features, like sponsored ads and product ratings, they're quite unique to Amazon. But essentially, we can connect the dots with how a customer searches, navigates, purchases, or abandons a product within any given site. So who would find this information useful? There's direct implications for several teams within a brand. For instance, for search marketing, if I was in charge of SEO or PPC at Garnier, I'd want to know how my customers are searching for my product category or for my specific products on Google and how this would differ on retailers like Amazon. So with these insights, I could better direct my paid search activity on these platforms. I could also make sure that my product descriptions are matched to the customer's search queries. Another application could be for product and merchandising teams. So if I was a product manager at Garnier, I'd be able to identify if I have any gaps or opportunities in my product portfolio and how people are searching for those particular products on third-party sites. With these insights, I'd be able to grow and protect my category share. As well, there's definitely implications for channels and partnership teams. So if I was in charge of managing the relationship of Amazon at Garnier, I'd be able to understand my true performance versus my competitor brands on these particular third-party sites. Additionally, I'd also be able to see if there are any affiliates or partners that I should be working for. So this is all great in theory. What does that look like in action? So let's take a look at some of these examples. So zooming a little bit deeper into unpacking the URL for search queries. So let's look at another category on Amazon to illustrate how. specifically the sports and leisure category. So the reason why we chose this category is that it was one of the fastest growing verticals on Amazon, rising by 69% over the start to the middle of the year. This chart compares Amazon's search share for 5 key outdoor clothing and equipment brands. So out of these 5 brands, Mountain Warehouse saw almost 500,000 hits from Amazon's on-site searches in May, which was a rise of 33% compared to the previous month. Another call out as well is Coleman. Although at a smaller scale, this brand also saw the largest growth at 92% compared to the previous month, so a significant uplift compared to the month of April. So in this example, let's say we were Regatta, where we're the second-ranked brand, and we also manage the relationship at Amazon. One of our KPIs is to optimize how our products are being viewed and how our products rank on Amazon's site. So we're in this situation. We were top placed when it came to Amazon search traffic in the month of April. Since then, we've now been displaced by Mountain Warehouse in May, and Coleman is fast on our heels. So by looking deeper into Amazon's URL, specifically at the search terms, we can understand why this is the case. So as Regatta, let's firstly understand what searches our competitors are receiving. So in this chart, we're showcasing the top 10 searches that Mountain Warehouse received. And interestingly, only 1 out of those top 10 searches was actually branded. This was the Mountain Warehouse Dino Galette. So there's several things as Regatta that I could do with this information. For instance, I could place sponsored ads on trending generic searches, for instance, like the winter boots or men's long sleeve t-shirts. I could also audit our product titles and product descriptions to make sure these truly match Amazon search queries. Secondly, we also called out another brand, Coleman, that saw that incredible rise in the month of May. Again, by looking at the search terms and seeing which particular products they led to, there's different implications that I could do as Regatta. So in May, Coleman saw the biggest uplift from Amazon searches of shelters, coolers, and tents. So definitely a trending area when it comes to products. As Regatta, for instance, I've identified that these products are growth areas. I could again optimize to these searches either through paid activity or through product descriptions to make sure that my like-for-like products are also trending for these particular searches. So this is just a really quick example to show what search analytics can do within a retailer. For instance, to direct my paid search activity and to also understand what is trending for a retailer's audience. Which brings me on to my next example. How can I use deeper URLs to stay on top of the latest consumer trends? One way, which we've just seen with the Regatta example, is through search. But another way is by also understanding the product pages and content that my customers are consuming. So from retail, let's shift gear and move into the world of news and media. Market share is absolutely critical for news and media, and every single hour is important to improve a publication's reach to their audience. In this chart, we're comparing 2 major publications, The Guardian versus The Independent. And within a single day, we can see how their market share, how their news and media market share online shifts hour by hour. A couple of call-outs. The Independent saw a surge in the wee early hours of the 7th of October, so only a couple of days ago, whereas The Guardian later rose from about 7 to 11 a.m. and maintained share throughout that day. So if I were one of these 2 publications or a competitor publication, I would want to know what drove those increases at those particular hours, i.e. what were online customers, online readers interested at 3 a.m. or at 7 to 11 a.m. So let's see how. So when it came to 3 a.m. a couple of days ago, apparently quite a famous Ultimate Fighting Champion fight was being broadcasted between McGregor and Khabib. So how did these publications win in terms of that particular story? Interestingly, 85% of the Independent's articles that were viewed at that particular time were around this particular fright, which accounted for 9% of the Independent's total hourly share. In contrast, when it came to The Guardian, only 26% of their articles that were read were around this fight, resulting in a much lower hourly share at 3%. But as we saw in that previous chart, The Guardian share rose, particularly from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. So what content drove that rise? The Independent's articles were still focused on the McGregor and Khabib fight around about 7 a.m., accounting for 74% of the articles read and consumed on their site. A different story evolves when we look at the Guardian share. The share of articles around that fight dropped from 26% to 16%, and we can see that other topics, such as politics, like the Brett Kavanaugh trial, and lifestyle topics, like the Finnish way of life, really rising at those particular hours. So this was just another quick example of knowing what customers are interested in at which specific points in time. So as a publication, or also as other verticals, for instance, in retail, to better tailor my content. Through this example, we can see, for instance, sport, like UFC, dominated in the early hours, and the Independent was able to win that story. But as we progressed throughout that day, The Guardian, for instance, took over with other types of content, like politics and lifestyle. Which brings me on to my third example. How can I use deeper URLs to get the most out of my partners and affiliates? Let's again switch gear and look at the finance vertical. So as we saw earlier, financial aggregators are continually rising year on year, becoming more and more important to the customer's research and consideration phases. As a retail bank, I'd want to know how I'm performing against the competition on these affiliate sites. So let's illustrate this in this particular chart. So this chart is looking at a leading financial aggregator in the months of January and February, zooming into the top 10 providers ranked by credit card pages. Over these 2 months of the year, Halifax and MBNA had by far the largest share of credit card page views compared to the other bank providers. If we dig one level deeper, we can see how and why MBNA and Halifax are the top ranking providers. So in this chart, MBNA tops the list for balance transfers at 15% share. Halifax, on the other hand, sits in the top 5 for other types of credit card features, for instance, low fees and also purchase cards. So by knowing which competitors are doing well, I can dig deeper into the specific features of MBNA and Halifax's credit card offering. And if I were a competitor bank, for instance, a Lloyds or Barclays, I'd be able to benchmark these against my own. Another output, I could also adapt my product descriptions, emphasize these benefits or these features, for instance, balance transfer, to make sure that I feature more prominently on financial aggregators. So in the previous example, I was looking at how I could use deeper URLs to improve my performance on affiliates. In our final example, let's see how deeper URLs, particularly at category and product level, can help drive performance on my own site. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of a retailer versus retailer, looking at Amazon versus John Lewis, specifically at the baby and toddler category. In April, Amazon saw an 8% drop in purchases for baby and toddler month on month, but also saw a slight decrease in their conversion rate as well over these 2 particular months. Compared to the other retailer, John Lewis, although much smaller in volume, John Lewis saw the opposite trend. They had a 6% rise in purchases and also almost a 14% leap in their conversion rate month on month. So again, let's put ourselves in the shoes of Amazon managing the baby and toddler category. I'd want to know what drove John Lewis's increase over that particular month and what I can do to convert more customers in this particular category. One way is by digging deeper and benchmarking how our brands perform within the baby and toddler category and putting them side by side. So Amazon converts much higher than John Lewis on top brands, for instance, like Hatchimals and Mookie Toys. But John Lewis converts much higher than Amazon on a number of other brands like Sylvanian Families and Orchid Toys. So as a quick win, Amazon, I could do several things with this data if I were Amazon. I could put special features. I could also put discounts and promotions on Sylvanian Families or any of these other brands, as we know that these products are converting quite well elsewhere on our competitor's site. I could also make sure that these brands are also featuring quite heavily and on top on my product category page to try and win that share from John Lewis. So by looking deeper into the URLs for categories, brands, and products, it'll allow me to look at a more granular level of how I'm tracking versus the competition. In this example, I could use these insights to feed into my promotional activity, product portfolio, and also my site navigation as well. So to summarize, we've covered a lot of use cases that span different industries from retail, news and media, travel and finance. In summary, deeper URLs can help inform several teams. So we know that native search is becoming increasingly important. How could we use this information as a search marketer? I'd want to know how my customers are searching differently on site and on Google to help direct my paid search activity or my organic search activity. Additionally, deeper URLs can also inform my content teams. Specifically, it will allow me to see which articles and types of content my customers are consuming and are interested in, for instance, as we saw in The Guardian and The Independent example. Thirdly, deeper URLs can also inform my affiliate teams. I'd want to know how I'm performing on affiliates versus the competition, and for instance, what is driving my competitors' success, as we saw with Halifax and MBNA. And finally, deeper URLs can also strengthen and inform my product and merchandising teams, as we saw in the John Lewis and Amazon example. I can identify the categories and products that are driving competitor success and feed this into quick wins, for instance, promotional activities to drive immediate gains. So that wraps up the presentation portion of this webinar. I'll now just answer a few questions that we've got coming through. So first question is, are these examples only from the UK? The answer is yes. So out of those 4 use cases, we're only looking at UK data. But at Hitwise, we also have significant samples as well and presence in a number of other countries. For instance, the US and also Australia, and additionally France and Germany. So definitely these types of insights, you can also develop these for other countries as well. Second question, is this data available in the platform? So with our audience view platform, you are able to, for instance, look at purchase points, conversion points, and also custom sections in audience view to be able to see which audiences are looking and viewing at those particular categories. A lot of these solutions that we featured in this particular webinar is from our custom solutions team. For instance, internal search, article tracker, product tracker, and so on. So if you've got any questions around those particular services, please feel free to reach out to your account manager. They'll be able to fill you in with more information. And thirdly, how do we get this Amazon data? So again, that's a really great question. Again, it comes from our methodology that I mentioned earlier. Our data is derived from a sample of over 3 million people in the UK. We collect quite a bit of depth of our data and report that quite frequently. So we're able to see the full URL string, with Amazon just being one of the main URLs that we collect data on. So we're able to, for instance, in the examples, look at specific searches, what searches led to which product queries, and also look at the product purchases that are made on Amazon and compare that to other retailers as well. I think that wraps up our webinar section. And just one thing to mention, as a follow-up, we'll be sending the slides and recordings as well to all of the attendees. So thank you. And if you do have any more questions, please feel free to send them as well after the webinar. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time as well.